This
Good
conference will
afternoon.
now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Guillermo Patino, the chairperson designee of the New York City Loft Board. I'm honored to have been designated by Buildings Commissioner Eric Ulrich to serve in this role, and I look forward to working with the board. I also want to thank former chairperson Ronaldo Hilton for his dedicated years of service to the board. And so welcome to our June 16, 2022 public meeting. This meeting is being held virtually in accordance with legislation signed by Governor Hochul due to the coronavirus emergency. Section 282 of the New York State Multiple Dwelling Law establishes the New York City Loft Board. The board is charged with overseeing the legalization of interim multiple dwelling buildings from commercial and manufacturing spaces to safe rent-regulated residents that comply with the minimum standards of safety and fire protection in Article 7B of the New York State Multiple Dwelling Law. To achieve this goal, the board adjudicates and mediates disputes between owners and tenants, tracks the progress of each building undergoing legalization, and prosecutes parties who violate the loft law and the loft board's rules. Before we continue the meeting, I'd just like to raise that two of the master cases that were on the calendar are being tabled. That includes the first case, John Roche, 120 Waterbury Street in Brooklyn, and the second case, Opera House Lofts LLC, 1127 Iron Place in Brooklyn. Both are being tabled due to inadequate service, so they'll be revisited at a later meeting. So first we'll turn to vote on the minutes from the May 19, 2022 public meeting. Are there any corrections or comments to the minutes?
I have one question, I believe. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say I'm going to abstain because I was at the last meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Delaney, were you gonna raise a comment?
Yes, yes, we had a report at the last meeting about this upcoming informational meeting on June 21st with architects from both sides. Is there just any update on that?
It's still going forward.
Can you explain? Sorry, I was also not at the last meeting.
So I was approached by several architects to have an informational meeting about their issues and concerns about the loft board narrative statement process. And I organized a few of the architects that deal with a lot of our buildings, and so I invited them to come to this informational meeting to talk about how we can improve our process, and hear from them what they think are ideas to help move the process forward. So I'm also working on changes to the narrative statement form that will be distributed, and I want to get their feedback since it's the form that they fill out, so that we can improve upon it.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on that point, once you get feedback on the narrative statement form, will that be shared with the board before it goes into effect?
It can be, sure. I will
I
present
think
to
that
the
would be
board.
helpful.
Thank you. If there's no additional comments, is there a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll move.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. Is there a second?
Second. I can second. Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Rivera, would you please poll the board members?
Mr. Delaney,
Yes.
Ms. Rosen,
Abstain.
Ms. Addo,
I also abstain.
Ms. Rajan,
Yes.
Dr. Padino,
Yes.
3 in favor, 3 absent, 2 abstain.
All right, thank you. So next on the agenda is the report of our executive director.
Okay. First topic is personnel. It's with a heavy heart that I report that Amy Lee resigned from her position as agency attorney with the Loft Board. She was relocating out of New York State. I want to take this opportunity to thank her publicly for her dedication and her commitment to the board, the staff, and the mission of the Loft Law. We wish her well in her next chapter of her life, and she will be missed and already missed a great deal.
Yes,
I
definitely.
ask that the members of the public be patient with us. We are extremely short-staffed. Our legal team has been reduced to two, Stefan and me. Hiring staff is a priority. We've posted Glenn's position, and we started interviewing. So we're moving forward, but you know this process takes time. On a positive note, I'm happy to report that Rob Centcraft from Brooklyn Law School started his summer internship with us on Tuesday. He finished his first year in law school in May, and Rob, we promise to keep you very busy. With regard to litigation, since the May meeting, the court has issued two decisions in cases that are relevant to us, and we've received two new cases. Starting with the decisions, we have the first decision deals with 475 Kent. The appellate division affirmed Loft Board Order 4973. In its decision, the appellate division held that the board's determination was not an error of law and supported by the substantial evidence in the record. With regard, the second decision is regarding 83 Canal, also from the appellate division. The owner filed this case challenging Loft Board Order 4890, which involved denial of a second application for an extension of the code compliance deadlines. In upholding the Loft Board order, the court found that the Loft Board's decision to deny the extension was rational. The court also found that the rules that petitioner owner claimed to be beyond the statutory authority were consistent with the statutory language in the Loft Law. You may remember that the tenants of 72 Warren filed an Article 78 challenging the decision to issue certification in the narrative statement process. After the court dismissed the petition, the tenants have refiled the petition. We're working with the law department on this case. The second case that we received was we were named as a party in a case seeking a stay of an oath proceeding for an enforcement of a subpoena in a protected occupant case. The owner alleges that the unit was deregulated based on the sale of rights pursuant to 286.12, and the tenant disputes this claim. The case was on the calendar yesterday. The court directed the parties to obtain trial dates from oath for them to issue the subpoena. The next item is registration. The staff is gearing up for annual registration period. The registration deadline is July 1st of 2022. A special thank you to Irma and her team for the hard work in preparing these registration materials. On enforcement, we received 5 answers for the 10 violations that we issued. We're currently reviewing those and drafting decisions. And that's my report.
Thank you. So next up is the
I'm
summary
sorry.
calendar.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. I have a couple of questions. Ms. Cruz, can you elaborate on what happens next on the enforcement front?
What happens next is that we issue administrative determinations on them, and we decide whether to impose a fine or not. For the owners that didn't answer at all, Those would be relatively easy because they didn't present a defense. I'm going through the answers that we did receive to figure out how to deal with them. But the next step is issuing a decision.
Right. And in terms of the owners who ignored this, um, what's the kind of time frame? I realize you're very short staffed right now.
The time frame for issuing a decision,
Yes.
I would say definitely before September. I'm targeting before the July meeting, but depends on how things go.
Okay. Um, and with regard to the uh, rule changes that we have been working on, do we have any update on those?
Stefan, you want to speak?
I'm sure. Yeah. So, the law board has been working, with the law department and the mayor's office of operation, to resolve the final comments that the agencies have had. The mayor's office of operations, has said that they have no additional comments, so they've pretty much signed off on the rules. The law department, on June 9th, submitted a few additional comments, that Martha and I are looking at and trying to resolve. And we'll be getting back to the law department, as soon as we possibly can, to resolve those issues. And then, like I said, we're very close to, getting the preliminary approval, from both law and the mayor's office of operations. Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. We can't hear Mr.
Sorry,
Delaney.
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Um, if Mayor's Office of Operation have no further comments, and there are just a few from Law Department, is it possible that the um, uh, rule changes would be ready for us to vote out for comment in July?
So to vote out and comment, I believe, once we get the preliminary approval from the mayor's office and the law department, we have to. I'm not sure if the board members have to vote on, setting a hearing date. I have to double check that. I don't want to say the wrong thing. But initially I thought that, I might have been skipping a step, which I apologize in my head if I was, but I thought the next step would, after we get the preliminary approval from law and the mayor's office, would be, setting up, a hearing, a public hearing, um, at that point. But I of course would verify and make sure we do everything correctly before we do it.
Yeah, it seems to me, my recollection is that because we haven't seen all the stuff that's not filled in yet with regard to the hearing date and everything else.
I'm sorry, you haven't seen, what is it you haven't seen?
In the drafts of the proposed rule changes that we've been looking at, um, all the hearing dates and the initial information hasn't been filled out
Right, yeah, that would have to be filled out, I guess, once we schedule the hearing day. So, you might very well be right that the board members would have to see that draft and then take a vote, um, for it to be published, and scheduling, for it to be published, and then scheduling a hearing, a public hearing, uh, at least 30 days after it has been published.
Confirm the process after this meeting, and we'll update all the board members.
Thank you. That would
Thank
suggest that we're probably looking at a hearing date sometime in September or later in the fall, I think.
Yes, that sounds right.
Where are the public hearings typically held?
22 Reed, where we used to meet before, is where we used to have them.
Yes, Specter Hall.
Yep.
Got it.
I don't know if that's what's going to happen now, but that's what's happened in the past.
you. There's no
Okay, and I
further
guess
questions.
my,
Go ahead.
I just have one more question. Um, as we know, the timing of the governor's month-by-month extension of the emergency order that permits this meeting to be done virtually um, happens a few days before the meeting date, just given when that rollover is relative to our third Thursday of the month schedule. I recall former Chairperson Hilton saying that even if the board went back to meeting in public, there would still be the opportunity for uh, members of the public to attend virtually. And I'm sure the staff had to give some thought last week, early this week. Well, what if the governor doesn't extend the emergency? Are things in place to hold that kind of hybrid meeting?
Certainly, plans have been made, you know, to have in-person meetings. And as soon as we know, whether it's going to be virtual, we cancel whatever reservation we have for the in-person location. I don't know about the remote option. I don't know what it would take, but I will discuss it internally. Um, I maybe a video camera. I'm not sure.
Okay, thanks.
I will look into it.
Thank you. So if there's no further comments or questions, we'll move over to the summary calendar. So there's 10 cases on the summary calendar today, which are usually voted on as a block. So I'll go through all the cases first and then ask if there's any comments. So the first one is Silkali M. Walchuk, LP number 127 Green Street, Manhattan, docket number LF0133. Second is FJH Realty Corp., 79 Lorimer Street, Brooklyn, docket number LS0281. The third is Bushwick 2 Lofts LLC, 114 Forest Street in Brooklyn, docket number LS0286. The fourth one is Jonathan Charles Nest, 250 Moore Street in Brooklyn, docket number PO0129, TA0270. The fifth one is Januse Wellen, 810 Grand Avenue, Brooklyn, docket number TR1341. The sixth case is Camrose Sci-Fi, address 158 Grand Street, Manhattan, docket number TR1378, TR1381. The seventh case is Christopher Sprolini, Craig Dice, and Michael Diamato, 605 Warren Street, Brooklyn, docket number TR1392, PO0110. Do any other board members have comments on these cases?
Yes, I have a comment.
Go ahead.
A couple of these cases include stipulations where the law board uses its usual language that it neither accepts nor rejects the other portions of the stipulation. And I have frequently expressed my concern about this approach in that it leaves people unclear uh, what the law board's position is. And in particular, there's one case on the docket 810, let me just make sure I did the right one. Yeah, 810 Grand Avenue, which is both, no, I'm sorry, it's 158 Grand, yes, no, it's 810 Grand, 8 to 10 Grand Avenue. The application is just for coverage, and yet the stipulation sets a rent, even though there was no request for rent or issue about rent raised in the application. To me, that goes beyond what I think is appropriate in the stipulation. I'm going to vote yes on the case, but I just wanted to note my concern.
I think that one was 250 Moore Street.
No, 250 Moore had a rent request as part of it. 250 Moore was a protected occupancy and a TA docket. So my focus is on number 5.
Got it.
Thank you. There's no further comments on the cases. Is there a motion to accept the cases?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Rosalind. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Otto. Ms. Rivera, would you please poll the board members?
Mr. Delaney,
Yes.
Ms. Roseman,
Yes.
Ms. Otto,
Yes.
Ms. Rajan,
Yes.
Chairperson Patino,
Yes.
5 in favor, 3 absent.
Thank you. So now we'll move over to the master calendar, and now there's one case on the master calendar. And that's 43 West 27 Realty Associates LLC. Address is 43 West 27th Street, Manhattan. Docket number is LE0717 RG0208. There's usually so does anyone have any comments on this case? Seeing Ms. Rajan, were you going to make a comment?
No, I wasn't. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. So seeing none, is there a motion to accept?
I can make the motion.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll
Thank you,
second.
Mr. Delaney. Mr. Rivera, would you please poll the board members?
Mr. Delaney,
Yes.
Ms. Roseman,
Yes.
Ms. Otto,
Yes.
Ms. Rajan,
Yes.
Chairperson Patino,
Yes.
5 in favor, 3 absent.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. With that, this will conclude our June 16 Loft Board meeting. Our next public meeting is scheduled to be held on July 21st, 2022. At this time, we don't know if the future meeting will be held in person or virtually, but we'll be sure to keep the board members and public updated. And information will be made available on the Loft Board website and an email updates through the Loft Board announcements listserv. Board members, please sign and email in your attendance sheets as soon as possible. Mr. Rivera reminded me we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year, so so this is especially important. So thank you all. See you at the next board meeting.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.